I just wanted to give my input on the Pro Football Talk article that just came out. According to Pro Football Talk, the notorious 11 of 12 deflated footballs from the 2014 AFC Championship game has been proven false. Chris Mortensen even doubled down on this report, saying that 11 of 12 footballs were deflated. It was later discovered that 11 of 12 footballs weren't deflated. There was no given number of how many footballs were deflated. This 11 of 12 number was completely made up. The fact that that was just swept under the rug now that this is proven false, like, Brady got suspended 4 games for this, lost a ton of money. I know that doesn't matter to him. I mean, whatever. They ended up winning the Super Bowl that year anyway. But these 2015 PSI readings that they were doing, all of that data has been expunged. It's no longer in their system. They don't have it ready to show. That's bull. Because Tom Brady fought tooth and nail with the commissioner. Tom Brady fought so hard. He's like, I didn't do anything. Like, why would I be suspended? And the NFL has nothing. The NFL has no proof whatsoever that he did anything. What they were doing in 2015, they were reading the PSI for everybody, not just Tom Brady. They were looking at it for everybody. And what they found was that, well, these numbers are way too close to Tom Brady's numbers for the PSI in that Deflategate game for us to even justify releasing them. So what did they do? They hid the numbers away, never released them. That right there shows you Tom Brady was innocent. Tom Brady didn't do anything. The big thing that caused the deflation of the balls in that game was the ideal gas law. In short terms, in cold games, the balls would deflate more. In hot games, the balls would inflate more. So it would vary from game to game of, if it's a hot day, those balls are going to be a little harder to catch. If it's a cold game, they're going to be, a little less firm and a little easier to catch. That is another instance of, how do you not just right away, how do you not, clear Brady's name on that instance? It's just, either way it goes, if it's too cold, it'll deflate. If it's too hot, it'll overinflate. That is just the ideal gas law. That's fact. That's not opinion, that's fact. And then on top of this, since the Deflategate scandal, if you want to call it that, scandal, multiple teams have been busted with deflated balls. Granted, those were in preseason games and not in games such as the AFC Championship, like the Deflategate game was. But to back my point up, the Steelers were caught with a massively underinflated ball for kickoffs, which, again, probably doesn't matter. But the Steelers were caught with that. The Seahawks were also caught with a deflated football. I don't remember the instance on that one. I just remember them being caught with it. Again, not a scandal, because it's not, just as the Patriots Deflategate was not a scandal. But the amount of time and money and effort spent on proving that the Patriots were guilty, i.e., Goodell going to court to maintain his right to suspend players. That's the only reason Brady got suspended. That's the only reason. There was no proof whatsoever of Brady doing anything to those footballs. The only reason Tom Brady got suspended was because Goodell has the right to suspend, and he was upholding that. these Steelers and Seahawks situations, I mean, they don't they're not as big as an AFC Championship game, obviously, but they still matter because why was the NFL so quick to sweep those under the rug and be like, oh no, they didn't do anything, when they literally took Brady to court to prove that he deflated footballs? And then the NFL General Counsel, Jeff Parsh, I believe his name is, ordered the deletion of all the findings from that next season. All the findings are gone because the PSI reports were too close to that of the Deflategate scandal. If that doesn't prove Brady's innocence, I don't know what does. Because you have all these numbers from all 32 NFL teams. All of them are pretty consistent. The ball was underinflated in cold games, overinflated in warm games, and there's nothing that actually proves Brady did anything. I don't understand how Brady can get suspended. I don't understand how you can justify keeping these numbers kept, like secret. The fact that the NFL is pushing these numbers underwater and not letting us see them now just proves Brady's innocence. That's all there is to it. If it proved Brady was guilty, they would have released him and been like, yeah, no problem. But the fact that they're holding it underwater and saying, hey, we're not releasing these numbers because there's simply nothing to the Deflategate scandal now, is just bull. It just is. That's not me being a Patriots fan. That's not me being a Tom Brady fan. That's me being a critical thinker and seeing that, oh, they're not releasing these numbers because it was too close to Tom Brady's numbers. Because if Tom Brady got investigated and got proven guilty, which he never was, then everybody would. Because all the numbers were relatively the same. They were all within a certain PSI mark. This is a big story that I hope doesn't get swept under the rug, but it probably will. If Goodell had info that would have exonerated Brady and the Patriots and swept it under the rug just because he could, that's a big deal. If there were multiple other instances of this happening and Goodell swept it under the rug, which there were, you can look them up, Steelers and Seahawks, that's a big deal. If there were multiple NFL execs that falsified information to get Brady suspended, that's a major problem because that just, I don't want to say messes with the game, but it's a conflict of interest because Tom Brady has now been pretty much proven innocent. And you have execs for other teams who were the original information givers in the story, which I don't think should ever be the case. This whole scandal is just, it's the gift that keeps on giving because now everybody knows Tom Brady was innocent based on this report. And the NFL has no proof whatsoever of anything ever happening. This is a non-story that turned into a major big deal to call the Patriots cheaters. That's the only thing that came out of this. There's no proof whatsoever to this stuff, and I hope the NFL is exposed for it now.